Thank you for staying with us. You're watching Daybreak on Trust TV. Now, the discussion of the day, talking about Cameroon and the Lagdo Dam and how it affects Nigeria. Now, there's a popular saying that says, water is life, which depicts the place of water in human existence. However, the same resource can take lives when it overwhelms the environment through heavy rainfall and flooding, which are being experienced across the globe owing to the climate change. Now, early in the year, the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET, and the Hydrological Services Agency predicted heavy rainfall and flooding in many states of the Federation. Now, it is becoming worrisome as Cameroon plans to open them, well, rather, they've opened the dams, and that will put Nigeria in a precarious situation, most likely. And that's why we are talking about this morning. We have in the studio the Director General, Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, and he is Clement. He is here to talk to us about this. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Well, it's quite alarming, and I can imagine that many Nigerians are already nervous as to what is likely going to happen. You spoke in an interview where you said that, well, Cameroon notified Nigeria about opening the Lagdo Dam after opening the Lagdo Dam. That's like 7 days after. Should we be scared?
Well, there's no cause for alarm. Actually, there are several channels of communication between countries. And following the 2012 flood incident in Nigeria, which was attributed to Cameroon opening their dam, the two countries began to discuss. It eventually materialized in signing an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, on the 3rd of May 2016, where President Paul Biya was in Nigeria to sign that MOU. But the MOU was short of maybe what some of us will expect, where Cameroon will commit themselves to notify Nigeria ahead of time before they release water. But that MOU has no such content. And then that was at the level of top government level. Then professionally, we are brought together into what we call Niger Basin. There are 9 countries in the basin in the West and Central Africa. From River Niger side, Guinea, Conakry, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, Benin Republic, and Nigeria for River Niger side. And then also Cameroon and Chad for River Benue. So it is a basin. There are 9 countries, about 1.5 million square kilometers. Nigeria, unfortunately, how do I put it, is at the bottom of this basin. That whatever happens in all these other countries in terms of water, flood, pollution, come down to Nigeria before emptying to the Atlantic Ocean. Now, so at this Niger Basin Authority level, there are 9 countries. Headquarters is in Niamey. So we have professional relationship among ourselves, colleagues. And also, we try to exchange information, which may not be easily available at the top government level diplomatically. Therefore, when we got information on the 22nd of August, Tuesday, for the Permanent Secretary of Water Resources and the Sanitation sent me that information from Adamawa State that they have, Cameroon has opened the dam. So she said, as Mrs. S that did the worst in Jack, MNI, that please verify immediately. Then I began to call my colleague in Cameroon, like I said, professional relationship. And it was not until Wednesday morning, 23rd, that I got him on the line. And he told me the dam is already open. We opened it by 10 minutes past 10 a.m. on the 14th of August. We are spilling water at the rate of 200 cubic meters per second, which is translated about, according to him, 20 million cubic meters of water per day into the environment. And that they will continue like that Therefore, the ministry, we began to work in the ministry, honorable ministers, the permanent secretary, and so on, to really see what to be done. That's why we notify the people who already the dam is open. So that is to that level.
Oh.
Is there a penalty for this? Because you talked about the MOU, you signed an MOU,
yes,
and then something like this happened without notification. The ordinary man on the street will be asking, does this happen yearly? Does this happen often? Do dams get released without the notification?
Yes, I recall. First of all, there are two structures within Cameroon that could have negative impact on Nigerians, and actually they have been having. One is what we call Lake Nyos. It's a weak, a natural lake in Cameroon. In 1986, August precisely, this artificial or this a natural lake with weak embankment, filled with poisonous gases, exploded about 50 meters high and poured some poisonous gases into the atmosphere, then into their own river, Kumbi River, that flows into Kasinala River. And there's so many animals died in Nigeria, even human beings too were affected. And also we have this, the Lagdo Dam. So it was on the basis of these two that Nigeria entered into this agreement with the Cameroon.
Okay.
But
now, okay, before you proceed, we have also joining us via Zoom Dr. Agoso Bamaiyi. He is in Adamawa State. He is a developmental strategist and also a resident who has been very vocal about this in Adamawa State. Thank you so much, Dr. Agoso, for joining us on Daybreak.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, maybe we should start by, talking about the current situation in Adamawa State at the moment. What's the mood like upon receiving this information in the past few days?
Let me start by saying that in Adamawa we have, I don't know whether it's the right word to use, we've grown used to this. It's an annual dance. Every year it happens. When the flood, the waters from Lagdo come into Nigeria, they pass through Adamawa first before moving on to Taraba, Benue, Nasarawa, and then, of course, meeting at the confluence in Kogi State. So the people have been well informed. I must say that this time around, information has gone round on time, and so the people are actually ready. But let me point out that their crops are still in the fields. They are not ripe enough to be harvested. And which means that if the flooding has started, the waters are increasing. If it goes on like this, like it happened last year, and like it has been happening for many years now, a lot of these people will lose their harvest for this year. And then, of course, their livelihoods. The people don't want to leave their communities because these communities have been there, in some cases, for hundreds of years. And these communities have lived peacefully with the Benue. Okay, the problems with the Benue started when the Lagdo Dam was finished. The building started in 1977. It was finished, completed, and commissioned in 1982.
Agency who said that, well, they themselves as an authority received the information a week after the dam has been opened already. So the people in Adamawa wouldn't have received that information earlier than the agency, would they?
No. And it's disheartening to hear the DG mention that. I've been following the work of the DG. He's been very vocal, trying to get communities and governments to do what is right so that we prevent these losses that we incur every year during the flooding season. He's someone who is really trying on this. The fact that his commission was told only 7 days after, he had to make a phone call actually to confirm it. It's indicative of the sort of problems we've been having with the Lagdo Dam over the years. Some of the problems are from our side. Some of the problems are from Cameroon. For instance, from what I understand, when the before the Chinese people built the Lagdo Dam, it was built by China. They did an environmental impact assessment study, which suggested that in Nigeria, because we share riparian rights with Cameroon, that in Nigeria, these are some measures we should take that will help mitigate the effects of the dam when it comes into full operation. You know, like I said earlier, it was completed in '82. It took 2 years for the dam area to be filled with water and then become a problem. So by '86, we had the first major releases. And I grew up in Numan. Numan sits on the confluence of River Gongola and Benue. I saw all this with my eyes. That was when we started having unnatural floodings. Remember, I said the communities had lived with the Benue peacefully for a very long time. And the Benue has been the reason for the prosperity of those communities. And but since the building of the Lagdo Dam and when they started releasing the water, the flow of the Benue has been unnatural, and it's been unpredictable, and it's been problematic. So it's something that has continued up to now. 2012, it was very bad. Last year, it was also very bad. We're hoping that this year it won't be that bad. But the thing is that it's a man-made problem. That's one point I need to emphasize. It's a man-made problem. It's a result of the dam. This Benue has not been causing these problems naturally. Of course, there's the natural, normal rise and fall of the river, but nothing like what we're seeing now. And this has further been complicated by the fact that the basin has become silted. It's been filled up with sand, so it's not holding the normal volume that it would hold normally. And that's why we keep calling for the dredging of the Benue.
All right, Dr. Agoso, you said something that pricked my curiosity this morning. You talked about man-made disaster. You also talked about people who have lived in these areas for about 50, 100 years. They have their farms there, and they are not leaving that place because this is their home. And now that brings us to the warning that has been put out there from NIMET now, leaving this environment where these things are happening. So what's the situation like right now? Are we having people saying that they're not going anywhere because this is their home, and at the end of the day, we start recording casualties as a result of the flood that is expected? What's going on in Adamawa as we speak?
Well, the Adamawa state government is working to make sure that we don't have casualties this time around, human casualties, that is. And the people are willing to move, but only temporarily. There's a point at which they would have to move, and they're willing to move. They will move, but they will come back after the floods because they're not ready to leave their communities. Like I said, they've lived here for hundreds of years, and that's where their ancestors have been buried and all that. It's very difficult to get people to give up that kind of thing. It's their heritage. And besides, the government keeps talking about communities moving, but no proper provision has been made to provide them alternative communities. They only move them into primary schools in other communities, or some of them who have relations in towns move with their relations. Once the water has subsided, then they go back to their communities. So if you really want them to give up those communities permanently and stay in places where they don't have to move every year, then there has to be provision for permanent houses. That has not been done, not from the federal government, and also not from the state government. Let me point this in case it escapes my mind. We are having these floods every year. We know they will happen, but we need to have in mind that and these floods are caused by the releases of water from the Lagdo Dam. Now we need to have in mind that the Lagdo Dam has aged. It is 40 years now, 41 actually, if you count from 1982 when it was completed. And apart from aging, the basin itself has been silted. So it's no longer holding the basin, the dam basin, is no longer holding as much water as it would hold originally. There are two problems here. That with the age of the Benue, and we're not sure the maintenance culture in Cameroon, I don't know that. it raises the possibility of not just these normal releases that causes such problems, but of a dam break. And if we have a breakage, then the consequences can only be imagined. I think that we need to think about that. I'm not sounding alarmist, but we need to think about that because dams do break. It happened in advanced countries, and it can happen here. We shouldn't wait until we have that kind of situation before we take remedial measures. And there are remedial measures that we can take. They are expensive, but for the sake of our people, we need to take those remedial measures.
All right, thank you, Doctor. Well, let me come back to the studio, Mr. Clement. I mean, I'm sure you've heard all that, but before even the construction of the Lagdo Dam in the first place, we heard from him. There were recommendations that were made to the Nigerian government. And I mean, after the construction of the dam, we've seen over the years, over the decades, how the release of water from that dam have impacted on people, causing flood and all that. In 2012, the most recent one, 2012, 2022, we've had very terrible experiences with that dam. And each time that happens, we see that government will say, oh, we've set up a committee and all that. The last one, the previous administration said, well, we've set up a committee to investigate and to, recommend how to deal with this. But we never hear of implementation of, the recommendations of those committees. We know about the Dassing Hausa Dam, that was recommended to be built as a buffer dam. What happened to the implementation?
Okay, now, specifically on Dassing Hausa Dam, which is earmarked to be built in Dassing Hausa, in Fufure local government area of Adamawa State. What is quite overdue, like we mentioned, is supposed to be a buffer dam to be able to catch whatever comes from Cameroon, even if it means dam break, like Dr. Agoso was mentioning, that be able to retain it. Now, currently, in fact, before the last administration, wound up, the Federal Ministry of Water Resources and Sanitation had long commenced the process towards actualizing that Dassing Hausa Dam. A consultant had been engaged who had done the feasibility studies, done the designs, and they have submitted to the ministry. And the experts in the ministry have already worked on the consultant's design, and then made some comments which the consultant is expected to reflect in the final design. So this is where we are currently with regard to Dassing Hausa Dam. And we're expecting that very soon the consultant will turn in the final design. Then the ministry can now commence on procurement for the construction of the Dassing Hausa Dam.
He said something about the Lagdo Dam and the maintenance culture.
Yes.
Is in the MOU that was signed between Nigeria and Cameroon, is there a way you can go there, inspect and see everything is going on smoothly, just to be sure that everything is fine?
Prior to that MOU, drafted and signed eventually, officers of the Federal Ministry of Water Resources visited Lagdo Dam, interacted with the managers of the dam. You see, at times it's not that straightforward, getting to someone's territory and you want to look at, they may even enforce security challenges, as if maybe say you aspire what they have. But I believe if we deepen the collaboration between the two countries, such is possible to see, like he mentioned, Dr. Agoso mentioned, the dams 40 years or 41 years old, so many things must have taken place, just like in Nigerian dams. That's whatever, even like Goronyo, Bakulori Dam, Kainji, Jeba dams, even Shiroro on River Niger, sorry, on River Kaduna. Some of them have been seated up to maybe even 30% filled with sand, that the current capacity has been highly compromised, so that any drop of rain results into flood. So I believe if we deepen our collaboration, we are the one that should be cutting Cameroon, because we are the receiving end. It doesn't have much influence on them. I mean, negative effects
So where are we with the deepening of collaborations with Cameroon? Where are we with that collaboration?
Before the Minister of Water Resources, Professor Joseph Usef gave a press briefing with the Minister of State as well on Friday, the 25th. That was part of what things we discussed, to really open up further discussion at our level. We're visiting Cameroon to discuss with them. We're making that proposal to do that, and I think before the end of the year, we'll do that. It can't be too much visiting them to discuss, because it affects us negatively more than it does.
Yeah, but Mr. Clement, at the end of the day, no matter how much discussion we have or how much, we deepen our ties with Cameroon, they will release their water when it has gotten to that point. At the end, otherwise it will become, it will backfire, on them. So we, on our part, we need to do what we need to do. Can you talk to us about the report of the last committee that was set up by the government to look into this Lagdo Dam issue?
Yes, whether there is a different collaboration with them, talking with them. Release of water from the dam is a normal reservoir operation. It's a normal thing you do in dams. For instance, Kainji Dam is the maximum height of about 342 meters. That is the maximum elevation. When it's getting to a certain threshold, they must open the dam for water to pass. But if you are doing proper reservoir operation, you can reduce water without causing flooding downstream. But then you should be able to, you should be able to anticipate, if I lower my reservoir level, am I sure that I'm going to have more adequate rainfall at this period of time to fill the dam for me to continue my hydropower generation like Kainji and Jeba? At times you may lower the risk, because most of the time, the first thing, especially even in Nigeria here, where you have those two dams that are hydropower, being managed no longer in the hands of federal government, commercialization or whatever. The first thing is to do power supply. They have to maintain a certain reservoir level to be able to do that. So if they lower their dam level and eventually the rest do not come again, they may run into trouble. Now to the presidential committee, that committee was actually set up based on the work of my agency. On the 4th of October, we wrote a letter. Normally at this critical time of the year, we keep briefing the president through the vice minister of water resources. So based on the memo the Nigerian Hydrological Service Agency sent on the 4th of October last year to Mr. President, detailing what has been happening, what is likely to happen in future within the year, that informed a memo, letter that was signed by Mr. President, actually through the Chief of Staff, to the Minister of Water Resources then, directing that he should contact relevant ministers and agencies and the state governments to come up with a document that will address once and for all the disaster that have been occurring in Nigeria due to flood. So on the 3rd of November, at the Presidential Villa, the presidential committee on this flood issue was inaugurated by the Minister of Water Resources then, General Suleiman Adamu. And governors, I think Anambra State Governor, Deputy Governor was present, Adamawa State was there too, and other agencies inaugurated. And we were given 90 days to work. So after the work we did in Abuja, we had to grant through to some places. I led the team that went to South to look at things. Now, a robust document had been produced, sent to the presidency, which was acknowledged and accepted sometime in the month of May before the administration wound up. Now, we're already talking again. In fact, the Minister of Water Resources, Engineer Professor Joseph Usef, when briefing the press, alluded to the fact that very soon a paper is coming out on that. Because it has given all the details that are needed. Where do we need to put more dams? Where do we need to dredge? Coastal areas where we need to put some structures, barriers to ensure that the ocean does not surge and enter into the upland. So it is holistic. So I believe strongly the Minister of Water Resources that is at the driver's seat in this, in terms of bringing others on board, will take it up with this administration.
But this implementation will have to begin from next year because, of course,
correct.
We're already running into.
We have short term, medium term, and long term. No. Some could be done even this year.
Okay.
So in the interim now, what should people in the flood-prone areas do? I mean, we've heard that, oh, they should evacuate, relocate, and all that, but really, is that enough?
Well, the challenge, flood incidents occur in communities. The communities are located in the states. So most of the time, the challenge we'll be having is that the states do not play the kind of role they ought to have played or to be playing. At the federal level, unfortunately, our activities are more or less at advisory levels. We can't take action. On the 24th of January this year, the Nigerian Meteorological Agency came on air, to give the details of rainfall in the year. Whether it is normal, above normal, it detailed all the locations in Nigeria. Less than a month after, 17th of February, the Nigerian Hydrological Service Agency came on air to tell all the states, these are the local government areas that will be flooded, this is how it will be. All the governors were notified. Now, we expect that the states should run with that information. Now, yes, the best that could be done at this moment in time is relocation of people, just like Dr. Agoso mentioned. Yes, it is not easy for somebody to move out of his ancestral home. But life is more important than anything. And it is temporary. You can move maybe for about 3 or 2 months. Your life is safe. You can come back to do your business. Now, the federal government had considered what is called the Presidential Committee on Flood Relief and Rehabilitation in October 2012.
Okay.
That committee is working. That committee is working, built flood hostels in different parts of the country where people can go and reside temporarily during this period of the year.
All
right, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Clement Nze, the Director General, Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency. We appreciate you coming. And also thank you to Dr. Agoso Bamaiyi. I understand that we've lost him earlier. So we thank you for joining us on Daybreak and sharing this insight with us.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here.
All right.